2021, in the quiet of a warehouse hidden deep in the heart of Tottenham's industrial estate, a lorry from the port backed into the yard. The cargo was bananas, nothing suspicious. But seconds later, as the warehouse doors swung open, the air froze. A squad of armed police officers swept in, moving in silence, in a silent, orderly fashion, like a silent storm. No one shouted, no one resisted, and no one believed that among those seemingly harmless crates of fruit was hidden a secret that could shake the entire national security system. What made it all so terrifying was not the quantity of the cargo, but the way it had entered the UK, quietly, silently, passing through every layer of checks without leaving a trace. So what was really going on behind the back doors of legal importers? This was not just about bananas and cocaine. It was about power, about faceless puppeteers. And if you want to know the source of this seemingly untouchable line, hit subscribe. You won't want to miss the rest. The heart of the case leads us to a name that sounds unremarkable: Agro Food Limited, a fruit import business that operated quietly in North London. On paper, the company was run by Petko Zhutev, a quiet, unscrupulous Bulgarian. But behind the obscure name was a network designed to disguise an international operation. No one living near Agro Food's warehouse or office ever suspected anything. There were no strange transactions, no noises, no unusual movements of people. Everything was kept to a minimum, just enough to avoid attracting attention, just enough to keep regular shipments from South America flowing. But what no one on the outside could see was the chain that operated behind Petko. Young, cool, and extremely cautious men of Albanian descent. They had no formal role in the contract, and yet they were the ones who determined the course of the entire operation. From the choice of port to the delivery schedule, from the person who received the goods to how to handle suspicious situations, every detail was tightly controlled. The drugs were shipped from Colombia, transited through Europe, and imported into the UK under the guise of bananas, a common commodity, easy to check lightly, and not arousing suspicion. It was all calculated like a chess game, where every move was programmed to avoid absolute risk. But in a game of this complexity, if just one piece was placed in the wrong place, the whole board would collapse. The shipment was just one link in a vast operation that had been planned long in advance. A transaction that was perfectly disguised as the import of tropical fruit. Bananas from South America were the ideal commodity, easy to transport, popular in Europe, and least likely to attract suspicion when passing through international borders. But for the criminal group behind Agro Food Limited, bananas were just a mask. What they were really after were tightly packed blocks of white cocaine, packed into large boxes and then wedged deep between pallets of fruit. To do so, they needed close coordination from international links, the source in Colombia, the transit points in Spain or the Netherlands, and finally the UK, a potential consumer market. The motive was not limited to drug profits. The group also used the shipments to launder money, transferring illegal profits to legal ones through seemingly innocuous invoices, shell companies, and supply chains. The less they attract attention, the more powerful they become. The quieter they are, the harder they are to detect. No shots fired, no murders, no tattooed gangs fighting each other. Just the chilling sophistication of criminal minds that have turned international trade into an underground chessboard. For every container that gets through, millions of pounds are funneled into the financial system, and with just one slip, it can all come crashing down like a tower of paper. When the shipment arrived at Portsmouth, it was still foggy. The containers were being loaded into the inspection yard as usual, but this time there was a big change. The UK border agency had received intelligence from a European counterpart, warning that a large quantity of cocaine was hidden in a banana shipment from Colombia. A special investigation team was set up overnight, including cargo analysts, customs inspectors, and experienced drug enforcement officers. They didn't need to break open the boxes to inspect the bananas. A new generation of X-ray scanners immediately detected anomalies in 41 pallets, with solid blocks cleverly hidden inside, squeezed between layers of real bananas. After several hours of verification, the conclusion was clear. This was 2.3 tons of pure cocaine, worth more than £210 million, one of the largest seizures in the history of the port. However, the most remarkable thing was not the discovery, it was how the authorities decided to deal with it. They didn't make the arrests at the port. They knew that if they acted too soon, they would only catch a few middlemen and miss out on the entire network. So a perfect replacement plan was put into action. Within 24 hours, all the cocaine had been replaced with real bananas of the same weight. The pallets were rearranged exactly as they had been before. But this time, some of the containers were fitted with GPS trackers, environmental recorders, and lid-opening sensors, all of which were invisible to the naked eye. And to keep a tight lid on the route, an undercover officer was put in charge of the transport. The ordinary lorry rolled out of Portsmouth in suspicious silence. It passed through internal checks like any other lorry and headed north towards London, to an old warehouse owned by Agro Foods Ledernasid. Their remote surveillance was activated. Unbeknownst to the gang members, hidden cameras recorded the entire unloading process. They were in no hurry, no stress, just checking each box, opening a few pallets as if to verify that the goods were still intact. But the moment they opened the third pallet, the signal from the sensor was transmitted to the command center. That was when the rapid response team took action. In less than 30 seconds, the roller shutters were pulled up, headlights flashed from both ends of the warehouse, and a fully armed task force rushed in.
Get down! Lay down, floor! Lay down! Okay! Back down! You're on the floor!
No gunfire, no resistance. But the suspects' eyes were filled with absolute shock. They could not believe that the plan had been monitored from start to finish. Right at the scene, the police seized a pistol hidden in a safe, 5 unused bullets, 9 brand new empty suitcases prepared to transport cash. Clear evidence that the operation was not just about drugs, but also large-scale money laundering. They also seized more than a dozen encrypted cell phones, most of them unregistered, the group's only means of communication to avoid being traced. In the final moments of a seemingly perfect plan, everything was swept away by an unforeseen flaw: international intelligence, something no encryption device could stop. And from there, the door to the entire network began to open. The investigation began with a detail so small it was almost invisible: an unusual delay in the import of bananas from South America, repeated over and over again along the same route. For regular shipments, the timing could be due to weather, shipping, or customs. But for those who track cross-border smuggling, the repetition was the first sign of a shady link. The UK border agency began sharing information with Europol, the Dutch anti-drugs force, and a Spanish intelligence agency, all of which had tracked similar containers. The pattern emerged: bananas from Colombia, transshipped via Rotterdam or Algeciras, then imported cleanly into the UK via Portsmouth. On paper, everything looked perfect. But in reality, not a single container had been randomly inspected since AgroFood Ltd went into administration under new management. A covert surveillance operation was launched, from satellites to tracking devices to personnel embedded in the warehouse. One of the first big breakthroughs was a phone left on a desk at the AgroFood office after an urgent midnight meeting. The device was not registered to the owner, only an encrypted messaging app installed. But there were some codes, strange symbols, and a partially erased schedule left in its temporary memory. Based on that data, the investigators tracked down a truck that had delivered the cargo the previous month, and during a resurveillance, they discovered that it had taken an unplanned route. That was the starting point for a whole chain of tracing. The inspectors began to trace each link, from the warehouse to the driver, from the banana supplier to the bank accounts that had received the payments. One of the accounts was held at a small Spanish bank, making regular transfers of £80,000 a month to a supplier of organic fertilizer, which did not exist in stock. Further investigation revealed shell companies in the names of foreigners with no UK residency records. To legitimize the flow of money, payments were split up, the recipients changed and wrapped up in a series of fictitious contracts. But in the digital world, nothing ever really disappears. A security camera at a petrol station near Tottenham's industrial estate accidentally captured a man smoking a cigarette next to a parked banana van, later identified as Eric Mucci, a senior member of the ring. The image was compared with immigration records, Luton airport footage, and international SIM movement data. Gradually, other characters were revealed. Not by being sold out, not by being caught red-handed. It was the tenacity and scalpel-like precision of a months-long investigation where every little detail could prove pivotal. While the criminals thought they had wiped their tracks, they had no idea that the game had begun to turn. And this time, the ones holding the board were no longer them. This is not a splinter group or a group acting on impulse. Behind the calm exterior of Agro-Food Ltd. is a gang structure that operates like a complete machine. Petko Zhutev, the business owner, is just an administrative mask. The real coordination center is Eric Mucci, a figure of Albanian origin with extensive cross-border connections. Mucci does not appear on paper, but all decisions are made by him, from choosing shipping routes, allocating roles, to setting up intermediary companies to launder money after each successful deal. Under Mucci are Bruno Cucci, who oversees delivery and warehousing, Gergi Diko, in charge of moving and distributing goods, and Olsi Abeya, who monitors and guards delivery routes. Each person has a clear role, no overlap, no confusion. This gang does not need to use guns to threaten, does not need to fight for territory. What they control is the system. From Colombia, the shipments are compressed, carefully disguised, and shipped to Europe via tried and tested routes. From there, under the guise of legitimate fruit importers, hundreds of kilograms of cocaine are smuggled through international logistics as a clean commodity. No blood is shed, no gunfire is fired, but each successful shipment adds millions of pounds to the illicit money supply, and then recirculates back into the economy as if it belonged there in the first place. The arrest came on a gloomy afternoon, but not one that was gloomy in the way the British police carried them out. After months of investigation and surveillance, they waited for the perfect moment, when all the key members of the ring were gathered in a warehouse in Tottenham, inspecting the switched banana pallets. In less than a minute, the metal doors were pulled back, lights flashed like knives cutting through the darkness, and the armed forces stormed in, so quickly that no one had time to reach for their phones, guns, or emergency exits. No shots were fired, but the tension of being caught in the act left the criminals speechless. Men who had believed themselves invisible to the law now cowered amid the flash of flashlights and the click of handcuffs. The trial took place at the Old Bailey, a criminal court that has seen some of the biggest cases in British judicial history. The evidence was neatly laid out on the table: surveillance footage, listening devices, location data, encrypted phones, bank records, and even statements from undercover officers. Each defendant was named, each role in the network laid out in detail. There was no more denying, there was no turning back. The trial ended with a series of harsh and decisive sentences. Eric Mucci, the coordinator, the never shown, but always present in every decision, received 33 years. Petko Zhutev, the name on the papers, the perfect cover for the whole operation, received 27 years. Bruno Cucci, the logistics manager, was sentenced to 21 years. Gergi Diko, the transporter, got 18 years. And Olsi Abeya, the silent lookout, was sentenced to 17 years behind bars. In total, more than 116 years in prison for a network that once ran like a model business. And in the end, justice didn't just knock on the door. It stepped straight into the heart of darkness, bringing light and truth with it. As the warehouse doors close and the sirens fade into the distance, what remains is not just a harsh sentence, but a chilling reminder of the underworld that operates close to us. More sophisticated, silent, and terrifying than any movie ever shown. The innocuous boxes of bananas become evidence of a painful truth. Sometimes the most dangerous things are not what we see, but what we ignore because they are so normal. Behind every small company, every shipping container, there could be a piece of a dark web that is increasingly penetrating the legal world. And while the legal system tries to catch up, the lurkers keep adapting, changing shape, and changing form. Will justice be fast enough to catch up? Or will these ghosts continue to slip through the cracks? Leave your comments below and don't forget to like, share, subscribe to continue our journey to uncover true crimes, where silence sometimes is the language of power.